the joy on people's faces as they're on the course and as they finish, that's priceless. It's absolutely brilliant.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun Podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 56 of the show. We travel across the pond this week to chat with Nicola and Chelsey Bailey, the mother and daughter duo at the helm of As Keen as Mustard events. This was a fun conversation with two amazing women trying to do their part to grow the sport of swimrun in the UK, and it was just a lot of fun chatting with them.
We had a great time with them.
More on this later in the show.
Now on to our shoutouts. So this week, we're actually shouting out Amanda Gorman. Now, you might be racking your brain thinking, what swimruns has this person done, or are they going to be racing until a world championship? But if you don't know, Amanda quickly rose to international fame after reading a beautiful poem that she wrote at last week's U.S. presidential inauguration that stole the show. It was amazing, and we definitely think everyone should check it out if you need some inspiration in your life. The poem was called The Hill We Climb, and you can watch it. We included the links in the show notes there. Definitely worth 6 minutes of your time. On to adventure time and training updates.
Yeah, so we're keeping on, as Bob Dylan would say, with training as we try to figure out what our race calendar might look like for the spring. Spoiler alert, it's TBD. We also have an atmospheric river hitting us as we speak. So assuming, I don't know, the world still exists in Marin, California, then we'll be back at it soon.
Yeah, but I would say one word to describe our training thus far, we've been very consistent. And I think that is going to pay off.
Yeah.
Dividends.
Speaking of atmospheric rivers, I think I might have convinced Chipper to go on a crazy trail run wearing his swimrun suit.
Oh, yes.
Which could
I'm
be
totally in. What a good way to break in the VIG.
Yeah.
With a torrential downpour mountainous trail
totally.
run.
Talk about simulating race conditions without having to swim.
Should we put the buoy on and everything when we do it, or just?
No,
that would be too.
We don't want
to alarm the cows.
Well, I don't want to trip and hurt the buoy in case I.
That's true.
Take a swan dive or something.
Absolutely. On to this week's Feats of Endurance. This week's Feats of Endurance honoree is Letitia Worth, Porto Alegre, Brazil. She's been putting in around 37,000 yards of swimming per week and also running a ton. We're not sure what she's been training for, but keep up the good work. Make sure to join our Low Tide Boyz Strava Club. Just search Low Tide Boyz on Strava. And you can cheer on and see the activities of your fellow swim runners as they train for life and other stuff. All their Strava activities. Get some kudos for yourself. Give some out. Fun discussions to be had. Join the fun. Low Tide Boyz Strava Club. See you there. Now, on to This Week in Swimrun, powered by RaceID.com. Hit that intro music.
Okay, so we have a few race updates to share this week. Attila recently announced their merit races for 2021. For those in the U.S., the merit races are Swimrun Lake James, Odyssey, Swimrun Casco Bay, and Orcas Island, and Swimrun North Carolina. So the list is a little bit pared down from what it was last year, but we actually think it makes sense. These races are all really challenging and representative of what someone would expect if they actually qualified for the World Championship. For those in the Southern Hemisphere, particularly in Brazil, registration is open for the Hero Swim Run, which is also a merit race. This race is on April 10th, and they have 3 distance options. And they also have like a 1K kids swim run, which looks like pretty fun for the little ones.
If we were down in Brazil, we could get the kids to do that thing. No problem.
Oh, totally. I mean, I'd do it with them.
Yeah, just hold on to my back.
Yeah.
Just sit on me. I'll swim a K.
Yeah. And this is a race where there's like no wetsuit because it's just too damn hot in the water. ML Swim Run, produced by A to B Events, is open for registration on RaceID.com. The race date is set for August 21st, and the event offers 3 distances, including a new 113K ultra distance.
Nasty.
Which, yeah. I mean, I think if you're, way to be A to B events.
If you're signing up for that, drop us a note. lowtideboys@gmail.com. We want to
We'd like a race report.
Yeah,
We'd like a race
get
report
inside
for
your
sure.
motivation.
Now, Boraz Swimrun, which is put on by swimrun legend and previous guest of the show, Jonas Kolting, has moved their 2021 race date from May 30th to a very special date in my heart, September 12th.
Oh.
Happens to be the greatest day in the world. Also my birthday. This event is also an Attila merit race for those folks who care about that sort of thing. That's it for this week. Feel free to email us to tip us off of any events or swimrun news that you'd like for us to share on this show.
On to updates. Now, we've heard from several different folks. Hats seem to be something that everybody wants. So we'll be mocking up a few different designs and sharing those on Instagram. We can do some head-to-head, some voting, some yay or nays, yes or no. So crowdsourcing what potentially could be on your head or wherever else you put hats. So those will be coming up soon. So keep an eye on
where
the
else you
Instagram.
put hats? Like on your mantle?
On your mantle, on your desk sometimes.
Yeah, gotcha.
Or
Yeah.
a hat rack.
Yeah.
Hat rack's very popular. I don't know. Hat rack sales probably aren't through the roof anymore.
Well, they will be after the show.
At the Atmosphere Rivik.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway, humana. We also mentioned earlier in the show where they're not 100% sure what our race schedule is looking like in the spring, but we do know what it will look like in the fall. So we are officially registered, we being the Low Tide Boyz, Chris and Chip, for Odyssey, Swimrun, Orca Island, Casco Bay, and Austin, and Attila Catalina.
That's right. That's what our fall looks like. We'll see what the spring holds. Hopefully it involves some swim running, but we'll see.
Yeah. Now, on to this week's interview with the Keen as Mustard team.
Yeah, so this race company caught our eye pretty much as soon as we started following swimrun accounts on Instagram. They're focusing on entry-level swimrun distances. Their events allow for a supportive environment for folks to experience the sport for the first time. And really in the process, the mother and daughter duo of Nicky and Chelsey have built an amazing community of athletes. And it's been a key part of the growth of swimrun in the UK. In this conversation, we chatted with them about the origins of the name and the event company, their vision for creating an inclusive swimrun community, how they managed the lockdowns due to COVID-19, and their plans for the future. We really had a lot of fun with this episode.
Yeah.
It was great chatting with them. And, on the friendly, nice scale, they're definitely a 10.
They're high. They're indexing high on that scale.
Very high.
Also, I think what really comes through, too, is just their passion for the sport. And you hear I didn't even realize they did this. They did 5 swimrun races in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Or not, they produced that.
Yep.
So that just takes a lot of grit and tenacity and gumption to get that done.
I remember when we started the segment This Week in Swimrun, it was like every week
was a mustard hot take.
Yeah.
So without any further ado, here you go. As Keen and Mustard, Nicky and Chelsey.
Enjoy.
Enjoy it. Dijon mustard?
Spicy? Deli?
Excuse me? Do you have any Grey Poupon?
Pardon me.
Pardon me. Well, with us today, we have the mother-daughter duo, Nicky and Chelsey Bailey from the Keen as Mustard team from Cambridge, UK. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
Well, this has been a long time coming, but we're so happy to have you on.
We're pleased to be here.
So we have, I guess, the primary question that all our listeners are curious about. How did you come up with the name Keen as Mustard for your race company?
We wanted something a little bit quirky because we are a little bit quirky. And Keen as Mustard here in the UK is an old-fashioned saying where you were obviously keen to do something, wanted to run with something, so we thought it was very apt to call ourselves as Keen as Mustard.
And we both
really
like
is.
the colour yellow, so that meant that we could then have everything yellow as well.
Yeah.
There you go. And mustard's such a versatile ingredient and condiment, and there's all varying things, so it's a great applicable term.
It is. We do put a sachet of mustard in all of our goodie bags.
Oh,
well.
I love it.
That's great.
I love it.
I love
yeah,
that's,
and I guess
that's the perfect touch.
Keena's ketchup just doesn't have the same ring to it, like
No,
you know,
no, not
stew
quite.
ketchup.
Because it could be catsup, and that doesn't.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
you
all
don't-
messed up.
Okay. Awesome. So we have mother-daughter team that's hosting swimrun events in the UK. How did all this come to be? How did you two get turned on to swimrun? And then how did this Keen and Mustard get formed and started?
We started with I did a small swim run in the UK about 4 years ago and loved the sport. But there was nothing much else apart from the one that I'd competed in. There wasn't any other really small swim runs around. There were the Brecker and the more sort of distance ones. We thought that we ought to put something on to introduce people to the sport because we thought it was so great.
Love it.
That's so great. And we've talked to kind of both ends of the spectrum. You know, we've done the Otala, Catalina, and then all the way down to these really kind of, I guess what we would call them is like, what would we call them, Chris?
Just your local starter races.
Your local starter swim run races. And that is where we feel is where the sport of swim run is really going to kind of like take off and have this big growth is with these little local races where you're really interacting a lot with the community. And it sounds like the Keen as Mustard community is bustling.
Yeah, it actually kind of reminds me of, I think there's an analogy to triathlon where, you have your Ironmans and all that stuff, right? But it's really your local, in your community, your local race directors that are really introducing people to the sport, getting them comfortable with it before they kind of step up.
Nobody starts straight with an Ironman.
Right, exactly.
You all start with a 5K and
Exactly.
then you start with a sprint triathlon, then you build up to a standard, then you do your half, and then you, if you want to, go for your iron. So we saw swim run as being very similar, that you'd start with your 5K or your 10K, and then you'd build up, and then if you wanted to then move on to the Otillo, the sort of hardcore, but you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah. So you create this series, and one of the things I've noticed just from social media is just you already have like an amazing community, and like, did that just happen? I mean, my sense of it is like swimrun is just the people that are drawn to swimrun just happen to be really nice, cool people. So I think it's natural that a community would form and that it would be vibrant and great and welcoming and all that stuff, right? At least that's been my experience in the sport. Mm-hmm. But was that intentional? Were you surprised? Did it happen really quickly? Tell us a little bit about how this community became so great.
I think it's a certain type of person that is looking for a certain type of adventure. And I think possibly from they come from all walks, we find, don't they? But I mean, we've got quite a few triathletes that have sort of morphed over to a swim run because it's a much more chilled, relaxed, friendly. No two courses are the same, so you're not looking at that tenth of a second, you're not looking to lose the extra couple of pounds because it will feel better on your bike. It's more rough and ready, more adventure race, far more fun than triathlon. So there's a certain breed, and that kind of breed are jolly kind of people.
Yeah, more fun, much more fun. You're out on an adventure and you can't kind of channel yourself to kind of gain those extra points of a second like you can in triathlon. Triathlon's very science-based, and swimrun's it's the kit and equipment's getting quite science-based, and there's a lot of research going into it. But you can be climbing up the side of a mountain 1 minute and swimming in a lake and then running down the side of some woods and things like that, whereas in triathlon it seems very controlled, and you seem to get a very adventurous, up for it kind of person, and they tend to be quite jolly as well.
Yeah, I mean, in triathlon, if the aid station isn't exactly, it's a tenth of a kilometer past where it's supposed to be, people are having panic attacks and bonking.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have no people having panic attacks, just smiles on their faces.
Yes, that is easy to see from the photos.
And when are you? Because you're seeing it from a little bit of a different angle as well. Because we kind of talk about, and we've talked about the magic of Swimrun, kind of that blissy time at one point, after maybe it's getting out of a swim leg and running off on the trails or charging into the water and diving in, where you just kind of get that sense of like, this is the coolest sport ever, and I'm going to do this for as long as I can. Now, what's it like on the other end where you're just seeing everyone have those moments during your race over and over several times a year? It must be like the greatest feeling ever.
It definitely. When we first started, Swimrun has been very slow to get started in the UK, so it was definitely for the love and not for the money when we first started. It's still not really for the money.
No, I was gonna say.
But it is just, the joy on people's faces as they're on the course and as they finish, that's priceless. It's absolutely brilliant.
One of the other great advantages about being a race director as well is we get to design the courses. So we might have been around the courses that they've done 5 or 6 times, but we did actually get that initial adventure of when we're building the courses, we're out there with no real map and no idea where we're going, and it is just a proper adventure. So we get the initial, well, this is going to be a wicked race, and we quite enjoy this bit, and this bit's quite nice, and let's include that bit, which keeps us happy as well.
Yeah, I think quite often as we're doing the courses, we kind of look at each other and go, they're gonna love this.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit, because I think, not to turn this into like a race director's symposium or anything, but how do you guys go about kind of decide? You have from your website, it looks like you have 8 tentative races for 2021, given COVID and vaccination protocols and all that. But how do you guys go about scouting a course, thinking whether it's going to be a good swimrun course, and then just going from there?
Well, we first started with Google Earth and got very excited when we saw any body of water, and then it was
that's
just a
my
case
problem.
Of traveling out to see if there was enough ground around to run. We've got 7, I think, on the calendar, but I think next year we may just do 3 larger ones rather than the smaller ones. It's something that we're considering. Just to pull everything together and perhaps have a little bit more of a festival feel to the races. But we'll see. We're led by what people want, basically, and at the moment we're kind of all over the lower part of the country, just trying to gain momentum and gaining the interest and getting people to do swimrun, to have a go.
Have you seen that interest rise since you started?
We did. We always said that last year was going to be our year, and then of course it was no one's year.
That's what we said too. not just because we started the podcast, but we really thought that.
Yeah. So we were scuppered a little bit, but having said that, we get 5 races in 5 weeks in September. We had the opportunity. We were COVID secure. We rejigged our races so that we could set people off in singularly and keep them distanced and whatever. And although it nearly killed us, we actually managed 5 weekends in a row of swimrun.
That is, I don't even, some people have a hard time managing, even five runs back to back weekends. 5 times over.
It's only been really the last kind of month that we've actually wanted to look at anything to do with swimrun.
That's pretty fun. And I think when we originally reached out, it was probably week 3 of that 5-week series.
It was.
Hey, you want to be on a podcast? And you're like, no chance. No chance right now. Totally.
No, we didn't really want to even talk about it. It was one of those moments.
Yeah.
It was very rewarding, though. Actually, with everything that went on last year, like you said, with the community feel, it was so lovely, actually, in the middle of what's been carnage, for want of a better word, around the world. It was lovely to actually get to that group of swimrun people together and see everybody, even at 2 meters apart, and get them out and adventuring. It seems to have kind of kept everybody's love of the sport alive, and hopefully then this year we can get straight back to it.
Yeah, and we've talked to so many different race directors over the last year, and it almost felt like there was kind of this self-imposed obligation that a lot of race directors put on themselves to be like, we know the amount of happiness and how much people are needing our races, and they literally did everything they could to try to make it happen. And it didn't seem like it was a selfish, like a money grab or anything like that. It was literally, we want to put these on for the community because we know the kind of happiness that it does bring for everyone. Is that kind of the sense of the feeling of like why you got 5 in 5 weeks done?
Definitely. It was, we kind of needed to get them done, didn't we? For our own as well as, you know, other people. It was great just to get out there and racing, and so many people were so happy to be racing. So well worth it. Probably, you know, at the end of the 5 weeks we wouldn't have said that to you, but most definitely well worth it.
You've marinated on it a little bit, and
perspective is
we know we achieved it now, but
in the midst of it was absolute bedlam. There was so much red tape and paperwork going in every which direction to appease so many people to the fact that we could do this safely and we weren't going to cause absolute carnage in the community, that we actually could do this. Now looking back on it, it seemed through rose-tinted glasses, I think.
Yeah. Now, Chelsey, I have a line of questioning for you, actually. So, your mom here is doing these kind of swim runs. Have you heard about Swimrun before? And you're like, what's mom doing with the wetsuit? Is she going to the grocery store in her swimrun gear? And are you trying to keep your distance from the swimrun strangeness, or are you drawn into it?
Definitely drawn. Okay. I did triathlon, not particularly well. I wasn't a biker by any stretch of the imagination. I could swim reasonably well and I can run very well, but I was shocking on a bike. So any sport that I could get rid of the bike, I was quite happy with. And she'd come back from running around in her wetsuit and her swim hat and swimming in her trainers, and I did give her a little bit of a funny look and what's that involved? But we are now a swimrun team. We do actually get a chance to go out and compete when we're not organised races. It does usually end in a few arguments, as it probably should with a mother and daughter team. But we're usually friends by the end of it.
That's good.
That's great. I have very, very young kids, but I have a fantasy of doing a swim run with my daughter in like 10, 12 years.
Yeah,
it is great. It's epic, especially when you can beat her.
Yeah.
Nice, Mom.
Yeah, she is definitely the fastest swimmer, and I am the one being towed. I'll freely admit that one.
Sounds like she keeps reminding you of that fact, too.
I always, I've noticed, and I'm the one doing the towing. Normally, Chris and I do alternate during our swims, but I feel that the person being towed, there's often zero shame in that game. It's like, hey,
I would love to be towed.
I'm just
100% of the time.
No shame.
I'd love to be towed as well.
That's the new line of shirts.
Tow
me. Well, I see too that you have Head on as a sponsor for the Keen event. So it's not just the kind of the local, here's the mom and daughter team putting a couple races on together. You have support of kind of the larger swim run community. Are you getting people coming in from outside the UK in quote unquote normal times?
Not at the moment, but we hope to. We're super pleased that Head have taken an interest in the UK. Obviously, when we race, we tend to go to Europe because all of our races clash with the UK races. So we usually go, first one is the Costa Brava one that we usually do. Mm-hmm. And Head has such an association with the European races that they're the ones we approached, and they thankfully agreed to support us through like the grassroots side in the UK.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's great that they are, and we can see that they can see that we're building the sport. That our heart is in making the sport for everybody and moving the whole thing forward. So from their perspective, it's a good place for their marketing with the newbies and that kind of thing. So we make a fairly good partnership in moving the sport forward.
That's so great, and I feel like as the sport is growing, Obviously, COVID has put a little bit of a pause on a lot of that, but just looking at our own download numbers, being the only active Swimrun podcast on planet Earth at the moment, UK is, it's the US is our largest audience, then Sweden, which I think probably makes sense, but then it's the UK. And we have a lot of friends and fans out there that are super engaged in the sport and super engaged into what's going on. So I think you guys are essentially doing the sport a great deal of service by even just giving opportunities for people to try it. So then they can potentially move on to do more races in Europe and the like.
Yeah, I mean, we have no problem with preparing anyone to move on to Artillo, Brecker, to the more gritty races. I mean, we've got a few that we call fairly gritty, but we are more intro. We're not trying to challenge people too much. We're trying to introduce them to the sport, keep a smile on their face, and then they can move on to the more grittier stuff if they want to, or they can keep with the slightly easier intro type events.
And the nice thing about Swimrun is that, one, there's space for all that. There's room for all those type of events, and there's appetite from all the swim runners to do every type of event, from the local one to the Rockman or your big Othello World Championship. Everyone. Yeah. It doesn't matter the format or the length or the totality of it, but it's just the fact that you get to do it with people and interact with the community, and that's
definitely.
all it's,
I mean, that's about. When we first started, we went for a solo race simply because we know how difficult it is sometimes to find a partner that swims or runs at the same kind of pace that you do. And there are quite a few people out there who are singular that don't want to run with somebody. So why should they not be able to do the sport simply because they don't, they don't have a partner, or they don't want to race with a partner? So that's where the solo races came in. And I know we got slated a little bit because it's not authentic swim run and it's not true to the Otillo and all the rest of it. But the moment we started doing them and got slated, then all of a sudden Otillo started doing solo races and everyone else started to think about actually, And in the true essence of the sport, yes, you do need a partner, because in the nitty-gritty races, for safety reasons, it's better to have someone there with you. But obviously on the lower key, the intro side, you don't necessarily need a partner.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's a great way to get people into the sport. And I think a lot of, this is a educated guess, but I think a lot of people who do a solo race and get hooked on the sport are out there looking for partners to share that experience.
You can find someone that goes your pace as well. Quite often, if you're in a swim run race, you would tend to stick to the similar people around you. You either overtake them in the swim, or they overtake you in the swim, or you catch up with them in the run.
Yep.
So there are people there who go a similar pace to you. So it's a perfect place to find a partner.
You know what? I just had this idea, and this idea is for all. This first one's free, so feel free to take this.
Okay.
So midway of the race, everyone's been racing, and you probably always are yo-yoing back and forth. You always, I've seen number 42 before. I've seen 37. Midway of the race, just have everyone kind of stop. You're like, we got some tethers here. Who wants to link up and try the second half as a pair?
Take a tether on the fly.
Just like, hey, we've been running together the whole time. Might as well be attached to each other, and let's try it out.
Absolutely. At that water station, we need a few tethers, don't we?
Yeah. It's like speed dating, except you're...
there you go.
Speed dating, swim run style.
Yeah.
The next aid station, maybe switch partners. Maybe there's someone else you didn't hit it off very well with this one.
That sounds like a whole new sport.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you guys have Head on board, which is awesome, but you're also partnering with an organization that's near and dear to our heart, Wild Swim Run. How did that come about?
Fanny, mostly. We started tapping on Facebook, and she's such a lovely lady. So really through her.
Yeah, we met Fanny and Mia all the way back at Catalina.
Yeah.
So that was in February of last year. It's almost a year ago. But what an amazing duo those two are, and an organization for everyone we kind of talk to in the Swimrun space has the same goal, right? How do we get more people to do this and make it easier for the most people to be the most inclusive that we can for everything? And I think the work that they're doing with Wild Swimrun is, amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
And we're happy to at least like partner with them for one fun thing that was cool, and we continue to be huge fans of theirs.
Yeah, definitely.
But that was a really really sharp thought to have the solo thing. I didn't realize that was kind of, you were at the forefront of thinking about that, and yeah, I could see how some folks would maybe be a little upset that it's not in the original fashion or anything like that. But when you do think about it from the holistic view of how do we get more people just trying this sport out, the solo route is a really big starter for people, for sure. And that
definitely. I mean, with every sport you have the elite, which is fair enough, and those that want to win everything, and but they are few and far between. There's far more weekend warriors that want to have a go, and sometimes the elite scare away the first timers, because then the first timers feel they're not good enough, or they're not tough enough.
Yeah.
So short solo races where the elite don't tend to race in the short solos, gives everybody an opportunity to walk and breaststroke round, or to jog and just do their own thing just to get round.
Yeah, take their own way. You do you take your own pace, whatever you're going to have fun with. That's the way to go at it. And I think everyone is totally fine with that. And I think one thing that really is great about Swimrun is when you are at those larger kind of events and there is those elite folks there, you're just rubbing shoulders with them and standing next to them after, drinking your beer or having your burger or whatever after the race. And it's not anything about, I have to go, sign some autographs or whatever the situation
I don't
is.
think
They're
the
just
sport's
normal.
there yet.
Yeah, they're just normal people.
Normal people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in Costa Brava, when we're rubbing shoulders with a lot of the people there when we competed, it's a little bit of a fangirl moment of, oh, they won that and they did that. Oh my God, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it gives you something to aim for, definitely. But starting out, you kind of want to have your space in your race and run your own race and enjoy it, and then you could admire and look up to. And I think we've got all the solo races from the 5 to the 21k, and then our 21k we have the teams, and actually having the teams at events, so that the solos at the 5 and the 10 and even the 21k can go, I can do it with my mates, I can find a partner and then come back the next race and do a team race. It does then give them something to aim for and ideas as well to then progress.
Do you find that, because your community's so tight, it's just obvious how tight it is just from Instagram and everyone, sort of all the smiling faces at the finish line and things like that. Do you find that solo swim runners essentially find a lot of their partners at your events, or that there's like a system, like if it's their first race and they're talking to a more experienced swim runner at your events, that they're trying to help them match make and find partners that way?
We find that the more experienced swim runners tend to help them progress up the levels. I think one of the restricting factors with finding a swim run partners, if it's not someone in your family or close by, actually training's quite challenging. And we have got a few teams that live quite a distance apart, and I think they found their swim run partners at race events. I think our more experienced swim runners tend to help and encourage our newbies to progress, and lots of hints and tips and advices passed on the start line, and then when they're finished, as they're coming over the line, there's always a massive cheer for everyone coming across the line, and it's usually the experienced athletes that are cheering the loudest, getting everyone, cheering them all up and encouraging them to come back and have another go even at the same distance or a longer distance. yeah, I think it's more encouraging them forward in the sport. Perhaps as it progresses and we get more teams in the UK, it might then start turning into a swimrun partnering scheme that you do the 5 and 10K on your own, and then you'll find your swimrun partner to come and do the 21K.
So let's talk about this a little bit longer. So the sport in UK, I mean, swimrun in the UK is growing, right? What do you think is needed? Obviously, besides a vaccine at this point, but what do you think? What do you think needs to happen in the UK to really have the sport grow in the way that we all think it should?
I think you're up against the British, which is probably the biggest hurdle. But they're very slow to take anything new. Once it starts with a steady roll, and I think it's going in the right direction. I'm not sure what would hurry it along.
I don't know whether you can. I think it's a natural growth, and I think as more people find out about it, I think that's when it's gonna start to grow. I think a lot of people, and we get a lot of interesting questions actually from our first timers on how do I get my trainers across the water, and you sit there and you go, actually you wear them.
I think the best one there, we had an email from a lady who said, how do I get my shoes from A to B to C?
Because like a triathlon, like you would just leave a
pair
new
of
sneakers.
And I mean, we've even had people who have done water safety for us who have emailed in and they've done water safety at triathlons, and they're like, so am I taking their trainers across the water for them? And I'm like, no, they'll wear them. Then they wear their wetsuits and their swim hats when they're running. And I think it's the fear of the unknown and just more people finding out about it. And I think it's just getting the word out there mainly, like what you guys are doing is just telling the world that this is what swimrun is. It's not as terrifying as you may think it is. We're not all highbrow. We're here for you, and we want you to come and race and enjoy yourself. And actually, it is amazing. You're out in the environment. It's out in the wild and having an adventure and racing at the same time, which is you can't say about many races.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're so right there. And I think we as we kind of had trained more over this last year, we kind of have a normal spot we go to in San Francisco where we will do it's a place we could park and do a lot of circuit kind of training. We can run out to the right and run 10 miles and come back and swim at the same area. It's all very central. So
we're not running 10 miles. Though.
We're not running 10 miles, but anyway, I don't know why I even made that number up like that. And it was like the first time that we were there, and we talk about this a lot. It's like people look at you, and Chris has a thing. It's like they think you're either like a Navy SEAL or that you've completely lost your mind, or you're some like super military person that's doing some crazy training. But then as the weekends went by and the months kept rolling on, as we showed up more and more, we started to hear people go, hey, I think that's swimrun. Or, those are those guys again, those crazy guys that are running around. So,
yeah, in fact, we have friends who be like, were you guys at Aquatic Park? Because we saw two people,
swim running.
And I was like, no, it wasn't us, like what they look like.
We're like, we got to find
they obviously look like us.
Totally.
Yeah, you certainly get some funny looks when we train in the river generally sort of 5 or 6 miles away, and we're in dry robes getting changed in the car park, and we do get some funny looks as we start running around in our hats and goggles. But it's just going to take a bit of time, I think, for the British to get used to it, embrace it properly.
That's fair.
Our age demographic is generally sort of 40 plus. We have got some younger ones, but they're sort of the triathlon set that are moving away from triathlon and coming into swimrun. So it's tending to be at the moment a little bit more mature.
Interesting.
Chelsey, what's up with that? Why aren't what's going on?
Because I think all of the younger people quite like their science and like their point one of a second and doing that sort of thing. And I think it's just going to take a little bit of time for people to realise the adventure and see it as an adventure as well as a sport. I think you've got the Brownlees in triathlon, and they're all over everything and the Olympics, and triathlon's a lot more of a publicised sport, and so they've got something to aim for, and it's just giving some of the younger people some ideas of what they're aiming for, what they're training for, as well as then once they're in the sport, they then start to appreciate the adventure, I think.
Do you have the Brownlee's phone number? Maybe we'll give them a ring. I think they'd be quite the swimrun team.
I don't. I wish.
But it'd be good to get them changed over to Swimrun, definitely.
Oh, they would be.
They'd be
that
fast.
would be quite the duo. I don't.
Absolutely, they would be epic, wouldn't they?
They are. They're quick.
Yeah, I think they can just stay in triathlon.
They'd spoil it, wouldn't they?
Like, oh man, a new course record again? Okay.
Yeah, just get boring.
Yeah, maybe we'll make them tie their legs together. It'll be like a 3-legged race. They have to do it.
Yeah,
that would be the only thing to make it fair.
Disadvantage them somehow.
I do think there is a little bit of the aspect of kind of starting out is maybe you heard about Swimrun or one of your friends kind of told you, and you start to take a look at it, and kind of this is honestly what our show was kind of born out of, was there wasn't a lot of resources. So yeah, all these kind of seemingly, if you've done one swim run, you get it that, oh yeah, you swim in your shoes and you run in your wetsuit kind of thing. But if you're just exploring it, I can see it opens Pandora's box of a million different questions of kit. Wait, why is the zipper in the front on the wetsuit? Do you take it off every time and stuff? And I think the accessibility that your race brings to kind of provide a safe space or somewhere easy to really experience these questions or find out for yourself is just kind of what everybody needs.
I think that's it. I think if you think back to when you first heard about Swimrun, I know when I first heard about it, and it was like, you do what? Yeah. And kind of getting your head around the fact that you swim in your trainers, and what trainers, and what wetsuit and all the rest of it. It does bring so many questions, like you say. So having somewhere that you can, well, first of all, you can ask us, it's never a problem. But also that shorter race where 5K is quite an easy distance, and you're not going to come too unstuck with a couple of swims and a couple of runs.
Yeah.
And even if you hate it, it's over quite quickly. Not that many people do hate it, but you haven't got to endure too much over 5K. So it's a great intro. It's a chance to try some kit to see what works best, because there is now a lot more kit out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great intro.
What so one question that we get a lot, too much. I mean, we get it all the time. It's kind of ridiculous, but what socks? Like, people are always asking us, "Oh, what socks do you wear?" What's kind of like the top 3 questions that you get from new folks when they're reaching out about Swimrun?
Wetsuits.
Wetsuits, yeah. What wetsuit?
Socks
and trainers. Yeah, pretty much that order. And our kind of do I need to go out and buy a special wetsuit? And we're like, well, no. If you're doing a 5K, find a cheap wetsuit and cut it off above your knees and at your elbows, so you can move a bit better. Use the cut-offs as calf guards to help your feet float. Don't wear your heavy trainers, and find a really light pair of socks and just come and give it a go and see how you get on. And we find a lot of people, they do their first one and then they're busy inquiring about, so these Swimrun wetsuits, which one's the best one in your opinion?
Yeah, no, they want a concierge service now after.
And then may I introduce you to my friend, the head
where
of
we
my
take our kit down, and Fenland Runner is another little sponsor of ours. He sponsors the little 5K races, but he brings his kit down so everyone can have a go with pull buoys and hand paddles. And so we have like an informal couple of times a year, don't we, down on the river. We set up a little course where they swim about 500 meters and then they run maybe 1,000 meters. and then they get a feel for
that's awesome.
conditions and that kind of thing. But they can get hold of kit, so they haven't got to spend out on the kit. It's there for them to try, so that's always a great one.
That's so good. And I mean, no one wants to, especially if you're on the fence about wanting to do an activity, you know, dropping a couple $100 or pounds or whatever it is not the way you want to get started. Is outlaying a bunch of cash. So it's nice to have that. And Chris and I have just a big plastic, I don't even know how big, but tub, probably a 15-20 gallon tub that we just have all of our extra swim run wetsuits in, extra goggles and hats. And it's like, whenever we go out, if anyone comes up to our car as we're getting changed, like, what are you doing? We're like, here's a suit. Like, you want to come with us? We're always trying to entice people to do it.
Epic.
I mean, I have thoroughly enjoyed meeting both of you. I'm so glad that we can make this happen today.
Us too. It's been great.
Thank you very much.
You.
Yeah, and we'll make you a promise. This is on the air. We're making a promise. If we're ever able to travel outside of the United States and we're coming through the UK on our way to do something, you know, to meet all our fans on our European rock tour that's going to happen at some future date, we are going to stop and do, we'll try to time it to schedule so we can do one of your races, because I think that'd be so much fun.
Yeah, definitely. You'll have to let us know.
You're welcome.
The way that we're setting this up is that I think we're going to be in
we're going to have to quit our
Europe
jobs
for like 3 months. We're going to have to take a sabbatical.
Roadshow.
So we're going to Sweden for a month, then the UK, and then we're going, so all over the place.
We might tag along with you actually and carry on around.
Yeah,
hey,
why not?
that would be a blast. Okay, so AKA mustard.events is where you go to find out for any As Keen as Mustard events. And obviously on Instagram and all that good stuff, we'll be sure to include all that stuff in the show notes. Chelsey and Nicky, anything else that we forgot that you want to point people to if they're curious to find out more about you two and then As Keen as Mustard?
We're open for questions. We're up for joining people if they want any help with the training or anything like that. We're available. Just contact us either via the website, Facebook or Instagram. We're really friendly. We definitely want to push the sport forward. So, happy to chat, happy to help.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time, and it was really great chatting with you. Have a safe 2021, and we hope you get all your races off, but not in 5 weeks' time.
No.
Yeah. Over the summer, yeah. So thank you very much for having us.
All right. Cheers. Thank you for listening to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review on iTunes if you're so inclined.
You can also sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboyz.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, drop us an email at lowtideboyz@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun activities, hobbies, and other bullshit we do.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
And then a run.
And then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then run to the finish line. And just keep going until you're done.
Yes, or
until
run
you
to
cross the finish line.
Or run to the car.
Or run to your car.
Somewhere. Just keep running.
Peace.